Hey YouTube viewers, so Between Realms is going to be a podcast-based series. I mean, it's going to be like my podcast. It's going to be technically like a series, I guess, on my YouTube channel, but it is going to be audio focused, not visually focused. So we're not going to have, a bunch of those clips in between. As you all know, you know how podcasts work. I don't need to explain it to you, but basically, instead of going on ADHD rambles and instead of me exhausting myself trying to deal with a script, and again, my ADHD and dyslexia, when I do my podcast, I am just going to have my well-written, happy little script right in front of me that I worked so hard on, and I'm just going to read it, and it's going to be way more natural. It's not going to feel like I'm holding you hostage in a staring contest for 30 minutes. So I think I'm going to like this better. I think you're going to like this better. I think we're all going to enjoy this so much more. So I'm basically just saying this is going to be the new format, and this is just a little message to my YouTube viewers. Obviously, the podcast is going to go right into it because you guys won't see this anyway on there. But yeah. Hey everyone, welcome back to Between Realms, the podcast where we dive deep into the worlds you love. Now, whether you're a fan of the MCU, DC Comics, or the high fantasy realms of Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, we've got something for every fan here. And today we're talking about something really fascinating. So last month, February 2025, George R.R. Martin, the guy that wrote Game of Thrones, published a physics paper, and it has a long title with a bunch of words that I cannot pronounce, but I have a bunch of YouTube videos up to pronounce it for me. Ergodic Lagrangian Dynamics in a superhero universe. So I know, George R.R. Martin, what the hell is he doing writing a physics paper? Why is he not writing Game of Thrones? And why is it so important that we actually pay attention to this paper? Now, we're going to unpack what this paper means and how it connects to the fantasy worlds that we love. But more importantly, we're discussing how fantasy writers and creators are potentially advancing our understanding of science, not just entertaining us, but like inspiring real world technological advances. So let's dive into this truly reality bending episode together. And if you enjoy what you hear today, make sure to share this with your favorite fantasy fandom friends. Okay, let's start with the basics. George R.R. Martin, the man who brought us the bloody drama of Game of Thrones, is making groundbreaking discoveries in physics, and not just any physics. We're talking about Ergodic Lagrangian Dynamics, which sounds like something straight out of a high school physics class that you absolutely skipped and I never even signed up for to begin with because I know myself better. But stick with me because this is key to understanding how superheroes could actually exist in our world. In this paper, Martin explores the theoretical framework where the dynamics of superhero universes are governed by the same fundamental principles that govern our own universe, particularly in regard to entropy and thermodynamics. So let's talk about what Lagrangian means. So it refers to something in physics called the Lagrangian function, which is used to describe the dynamics of a system in terms of its energy and motion. So basically, Martin is suggesting that in a superhero universe, you could map out the movements of superheroes and villains in a way that accounts for both their powers and the broader physics of law. So essentially, Martin is suggesting that in a superhero universe, we could map out the movements of heroes and villains in a way that accounts for both their powers and the broader laws of physics, like how Iron Man's suit is defying gravity or the Flash is breaking the sound barrier. The entire premise of this physics paper is based on this science fiction series called Wild Cards. So Wild Cards is a science fiction superhero shared universe, mosaic novels and solo novels. So Wild Cards is written by a collective of like maybe 40 authors, but George R.R. Martin edited them all. So a virus is designed to rewrite DNA, and it's basically developed as this like bioweapon during World War II. And so the virus affects each individual differently. It becomes known as the wild card virus because of these random and unpredictable symptoms. It kills 90% of those who contract it and mutates the remaining percentage. 9% survive and become jokers who develop minor but crippling physical conditions, and the remaining 1% becomes aces who remain human or mostly human in appearance but develop superhuman abilities. Aces whose abilities were too trivial or specific to be generally valuable were called deuces. There was like an example where basically like if I had the power to talk to narwhals and I live in Florida, I don't think I'm ever going to discover that I have the power to talk to narwhals specifically. Like that's just like the most random weird thing I could possibly think of, but like that's the premise. Like you could be an ace, but you would never find your power, so you're a deuce. You're the deuces. So like I said, this was a science fiction series compiled by over 40 authors that George R.R. Martin edited. The implications of this is insane as we cross over from all of these different superhero universes that these different authors are creating. So that's how we kind of get to this research or this physics paper that he wrote saying like, there are real world implications in our science fiction movies. Like if the fundamental properties of our superhero movies are the same as the fundamental properties of the physics laws that govern each of the things. This is why I need my script. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. So ideally, this paper is written by Martin to suggest that superpowers are not far from unimaginable. Like they are absolutely within the realm of possible at this point. Fantasy meeting physics gets us thinking in a new level. Could superheroes, with all of their outlandish abilities, actually be within the realm of possible? Considering the level of cyberbullying that you guys have put George R.R. Martin through, like this man is just trying to live his life. It's like when your mom tells you to clean your room and you don't want to clean your room, stop telling him to go write the next Game of Thrones books because he's never going to do it because you keep telling him to do it. So why would he want to do it when you're being mean to him? This is truly profound work, and people were on the internet saying, ugh, we don't even care. We just want these books. This is truly profound work. And this paper deserved an entire episode on my podcast. I rearranged my entire podcast schedule to put this right up at the front because I was so angry about how little people cared about this when this paper is insane if you actually read it and take the time to research half of the words that are in it, because I couldn't read this paper. It was so hard to understand. So that's why I made this, so you don't have to do what I did. I did it for you. Now, let's zoom out a little bit and think about something bigger here. What if these fantasy worlds are more than just entertainment? What if they're actually shaping our understanding of the real world, science included? The more we dive into these universes, the more it seems like writers and creators have been subtly advancing science through imagination. Tony Stark's Iron Man suit was born under extreme conditions. You don't think a person in real life under truly extreme conditions could also produce something equally as amazing. Not even that exact thing, just equally as amazing. Like when forced, humans are quite literally capable of the unimaginable. Tony Stark is a self-taught scientist creating world-altering technologies. From his arc reactor to Jarvis, Stark's innovations have inspired cutting-edge theories in energy production, artificial intelligence, and nanotechnology. Now, the arc reactor itself is still in the realm of fantasy, but the concept of clean energy, fusion reactors, and miniaturized power sources are very real areas of scientific research. In fact, engineers today are actively working on developing small-scale fusion reactors, a concept that was once stuff of science fiction. But it doesn't stop there. What about the Flash and his super speed? The concept of traveling faster than light is a well-worn trope in science fiction, but there are real scientific theories exploring this very thing today, a decade ago even. For example, I hold this up to for you guys because I'm not going to butcher this poor man's name because his work is too profound.
Miguel Alcubierre.
You heard that right?
Miguel Alcubierre.
So what he did was create the warp drive theory that suggests that through manipulation of time, or space-time itself, faster than light travel could one day be possible. But what about the Scarlet Witch or Doctor Strange bending the very fabric of reality with magic? In theoretical physics, we already have concepts like quantum entanglement and wormholes, which, while not quite the same thing as magic, show us how science can sometimes mimic what we've been told in fantasy. Not to mention the relation between the quantum leaping and all the manifestation girlies that you're all so sick of. They can absolutely attest to reality bending powers in real life. But that's a conversation for another day. Also, Ant-Man. I can already see a sketchy van driving around New York City offering quantum leaping or just going into the quantum realm just to see some weird stuff, just as a tourist attraction. You know, crazier things have happened in New York. So also the fact that every movie that has ever discussed time travel always refers to Hot Tub Time Machine. Even Endgame referred to Hot Tub Time Machine, which Sebastian Stan is also in, weirdly enough. That's not Scott, that's a baby. It's baby Scott. he'll grow. So the science fiction community and these superhero creators are continually challenging the limits of what we know about physics. And in doing so, they're inspiring the next generation of scientists to push the boundaries of what's possible. In a way, fantasy writers are some of the world's greatest visionaries, forecasting the possibilities of human advancement long before we actually make them a reality. All right, let's dig into the positives of this power. So you might be wondering, what could this mean for our real world? What happens when these superheroes and their tech inspire actual science and engineering? Now, inspiration is the key word here. I want you to think about how Stan Lee, J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of Harry Potter, and now even George R.R. Martin have shaped our collective imagination. When Star Wars introduced us lightsabers, it inspired a generation of engineers and researchers to look into how we might actually make a plasma blade. And we're getting closer. Companies today are working on plasma-based cutting tools that resemble the lightsaber. And while it's in the early stages, it's there, it's alive, the concept is working. But the positive effects don't just stop with technology. The concepts explored in superhero comics, like a human enhancement, genetic mutation, and cybernetic augmentation, have all become the focus of cutting-edge bioengineering and genetic research. Don't worry, we're going to talk about the negatives. We will. Think about the Wolverine and his healing factor, or Captain America and his physical abilities. These are topics that, while fantastical, spark real scientific inquiry into human regeneration, genetic modification, and even cybernetic limbs. Ideas that are now being researched seriously by organizations like DARPA. And if you don't know what DARPA is, it is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, which is a U.S. Department of Defense agency focused on developing breakthrough technologies for national security that may or may not potentially have civilian application as well. Now, if I can find this info, imagine what they actually have in there. This is what I can find off of simple searching on the internet. And I know I'm a good internet researcher, but like, damn. Now, if you didn't know, Star Trek, another sci-fi classic, watch Star Trek. You like sci-fi and you never watch Star Trek, disappointed. Now, Star Trek is credited with inspiring technologies like cell phones, tablet computers, and modern day communicators. All concepts that started in fantasy but have since become a part of our daily reality. The line between science fiction and reality has never been blurrier, and we can thank these fictional universes for that. Now let's talk about the darker side of this equation, and for every superhero, you have to have a super villain. A villain is nothing without his superhero, superhero is nothing without his villain. Now, what happens when we bring superhero technology to the real world? Could we end up accidentally creating a superhuman arms race? For instance, superpowers like mind control or teleportation could have incredibly dangerous applications if they fell into the wrong hands. Like, imagine a world where we could all just like manipulate each other's minds. Or like super speed, you know? Quicksilver, Dash from The Incredibles. If someone could break the laws of physics and travel at the speed of light, what are the ethical boundaries? Would we be using this technology responsibly? Or much worse, would it become a weapon? As we've seen in the comics, like Ultron and his rogue AI army, and there's also the question of control. Could technology and superpowers become so ambiguous that we lose our humanity? The more advanced we become, the more we risk disconnecting from what makes us human. Will we still value compassion and ethics if we build iron suits and heal ourselves in seconds? Now, the line between superheroes and supervillains is far thinner than we all could possibly imagine. And while these stories inspire a lot of hope, it can also act as a really good warning as what could happen if we went too far. Fantasy worlds like Marvel, DC, and Star Wars aren't just fun distractions. They might actually be setting the stage for some of the most groundbreaking scientific advancements in our time. But the question is, how far will we push the limits of possibility? And what kind of a world will we build when we get there? At the same time, we must always remember, with great power comes great responsibility. And whether it's wielding super tech or discovering new scientific principles, we need to tread carefully and think about the long-term consequences. George R.R. Martin's physics paper might just be the beginning of a larger conversation about the intersection of imagination and science. Now, diving into one of the most exciting and terrifying questions of all, do we think we could truly see a superhero or a supervillain in our lifetimes. The idea of real-life superheroes isn't just something from comic books anymore. It's something that scientists, engineers, and even ethics are considering. I know the question might really seem far out, but the more we look at the advancements in biotechnology, cybernetics, AI, the closer we get to seeing these fantastical figures come to life. So let's break down, could we actually see a Captain America or an Iron Man walking around, and could we even have one right now? And on the flip side, could we end up facing a Magneto or a Joker in the real world? And you're gonna need to buckle up. This gets really sciencey and we're digging in deep. First, let's talk about the science behind what makes a superhero. Sure, we've all dreamed of becoming a superhero, but are we actually getting close to creating superhumans through science? Let's start with some of the most iconic abilities. Take super strength. Captain America or even the Hulk. And I know we're not blasting anybody with gamma rays and we don't have like a super soldier serum, but if you take a look, there is research done by CRISPR technology, CRISPR. CRISPR technology, and the more you read about it, the scarier it gets. But anyway, now CRISPR can edit genes with extreme precision and is already making huge waves in the medical community. Studies are underway exploring how we might edit genes to improve muscle mass, endurance, and resistance to injury, all traits that could enhance strength. In fact, a paper published in MIT Technology Review back in 2018 discusses how biotechnology could one day allow us to modify human DNA to enhance these variabilities, potentially giving us super strength. So in this same paper, the MIT Technology Review from 2018, experts explain how gene editing could lead to muscular enhancements, such as improved myosin regulation. Now, I'm sure you've heard of myosin. It's a protein that regulates muscle growth, and by inhibiting it, humans could theoretically develop stronger muscles, mimicking the superhuman feats that we see in our favorite superheroes. And while we're not quite there yet, that we know of, genetic editing could bring us closer to superhuman strength in the future. Now, let's talk about super speed, like Flash, Quicksilver, or Dash from Incredibles, of course. Human physiology obviously has its limits, but we went to space, right? In the real world, we're seeing development of exoskeletons, a mechanical suit designed to assist with mobility and enhance physical abilities. These are the kinds of technologies that could enable humans to run faster, jump higher, or lift greater weights. In fact, the 2014 article from Physics World explores how mechanical exoskeletons could be used to enhance human movement and strength. Imagine augmenting your body with a suit that boosts your running speed and helps you leap across buildings. It's not as impossible as it sounds, and imagine that in the hands of somebody that does parkour. Need I say more? No. Now, when we talk about flight, the Iron Man suit obviously comes to mind, and so does Falcon, and while we're not anywhere near human wings, we have seen real-world powered exoskeletons and jetpacks being developed. The same article from 2014 by Physics World dives into the physics of flying suits, exploring the real-world possibility of powered flight. While the amount of energy required to lift a person is significant, advances in battery technology and propulsion systems might one day lead to small, wearable flying suits. We already have drone technology that is capable of carrying loads of weight and relatively small propulsion units that are capable of taking a person off the ground. So the dream of Iron Man is not out of the question. But the other side of the coin is supervillains. Now, if we're developing technologies that could enhance humans into superheroes, what's stopping these same technologies from being misused for darker purposes? Take genetic modification, for instance. While it could theoretically give us enhanced abilities like healing or strength, the same technology could be used to create a supervillain, someone with powers that could be used to dominate or destroy. In a paper from the Journal of Medical Ethics in 2011, experts discussed the potential dangers of creating genetically modified humans who might use their abilities to cause harm rather than good. The paper also raises questions about the paper also raises the very important questions of who decides who gets enhanced, who regulates these modifications, and when the rise of CRISPR and the gene editing technologies, we could easily imagine a future where villains like Magneto and the power to control metal and manipulate the world around him might use these kinds of genetic enhancements for destructive purposes. Even more chilling is the development of cybernetic implants. If someone were able to merge technology directly with their body, like Dr. Octopus or Cyborg, they could gain an edge over anyone that has not undergone the same enhancement. A paper was published in 2017 that discussed how cybernetic enhancements, including neural interfaces that allow direct control over machines, could give individuals power similar to a cyborg villain, capable of hacking systems, controlling armies of drones, or manipulating large-scale technologies for malicious intent. Now here's the million-dollar question. Should we even want superpowers? And I know it sounds exciting. I know we've all dreamed of it. I know we've all grown up on these wonderful stories, wanting to be a wizard, wanting to be a superhero, wanting to be like Wanda or Iron Man or any of our favorites, Batman, Superman, all of them. But the more we learn about the science behind these powers, the more we realize there are ethical and social consequences that could arise from the advent of superhuman abilities. Now, take artificial intelligence and robots. As we develop more advanced AI systems, we have to ask, who is controlling this power? If the most rich in our country are the ones controlling it, we face a chance of even more inequality in this day and age. A paper in Bioethics in 2012 warns that creating superhuman abilities could lead to further inequality. What happens when only the rich or powerful have access to human enhancements? And what happens to the rest of us that are left behind? Could this create a new class of superhumans that control everything and leave the rest of society powerless? And if you haven't watched the movie I, Robot, you don't have the same nightmares that I do. What if AI, which has already surpassed humans in many intellectual tasks, were to fall into the wrong hands? In a world where anyone could enhance themselves with AI implants or robotics, it's not hard to imagine a scenario where a villain could use their power to manipulate global economics, military systems, or entire governments. It's a scary thought, but the rise of supervillains through technology isn't as far-fetched as we might want to believe. The best part about this is that our superhero movies have already laid a lot of groundwork for us, especially like Captain America, when we see somebody who is deserving take the super soldier serum, and we see what happens when you make a truly ethical decision and you pick the right person. But we also see what happens like with the Abomination, when he just wanted Samuel Stearns to in the 2008, 2011, the Incredible Hulk. When Samuel Stearns created the Abomination, it was because he forced him to do it. There was a lot of things that went on. So there's a lot that goes into all of these movies that we've already seen, laying the groundwork for the right decisions and the wrong decisions. And I think we can learn a lot, and that could really help us as we move forward in these ethics. Once again, our movies and our fantasy worlds are setting forth the precedent on how we're going to try this out. So will we see superheroes and supervillains in our lifetime? Maybe. We've already seen the foundations of what could one day lead to real life superhumans, from genetic modification that could give us enhanced strength or intelligence, to cybernetic implants that could let us control technology with our minds, and advanced exoskeletons that make us stronger, faster, and more durable. But with these possibilities come enormous risks. We've only begun to scratch the surface of what these technologies can do, and we don't fully understand the ethical, social, and political implications of unleashing them onto the world. So while the future holds incredible promise, it also comes with a lot of danger that we need to carefully consider. Superheroes and supervillains are not just confined to comics anymore, but how we manage these powers will define if we get a world of justice or a world of chaos. So what do you think? Are we ready for this future? We would love to hear your thoughts, and as always, thank you for tuning in. Bye!